What's going on, Browns fans? Welcome into the Cleveland Browns Report by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here with the latest news and rumors on the Browns. After hiring Jim Schwartz as the DC, the water's calmed down a little bit right now. You know, there's not too much rocky waves out in Lake Erie, but there's still some interesting things I want to talk about on today's show. So, today's show, if you're not familiar, is utilized with our Bernie Kosar heads. So we have this scale of believability, if you will. If a story has 0 Bernie heads, it's fake news. If it's got 4 Bernie heads, Believeland, right? And then we fall somewhere in between for most of the stories. So we like to use this to kind of gauge how realistic some of these topics are that are floating around the internet. Let's start with this first segment on the show. Nick Chubb, is he going to get traded? Fake news. Fake news. I'd love to make this so abundantly clear because for 2 reasons. I have seen more than one person talk on Twitter and other spots about trading Nick Chubb. And here's the issue with this idea of trading Chubb. And I'm just going to nip it right in the butt. People often say, if someone called Andrew Berry and offered a first for Nick Chubb, you tell me he wouldn't take it? I'll tell you he wouldn't take it because he's never going to get that phone call. No one's calling to offer a first-round pick for a running back on their second contract. Nick Chubb is coming off a phenomenal season, but a GM that's going to use a first-rounder for Nick Chubb would probably just use it on a running back who they could then have on their rookie deal. That's why this would never really happen. Not even because the Browns don't want to trade Chubb, which they do not, but I would do okay, here we go. I'm going to do a polar plunge in Lake Erie if Nick Chubb gets dealt for a first-round pick. I said it. So Jack Duffin, who is a great follow on Twitter, he writes some pretty interesting stuff, but he's just kind of the punching bag right now, if you will, for where I sort of last saw this, now like the last straw that broke the camel's back. So he talked about trading Nick Chubb, or like what the value was, and he said he wouldn't do it too, and I'm saying that too. So we're not too far apart. But it wasn't just Jack Duffin. I also saw Dog Pound Daily and many other spots. Chops talks about it on Twitter. There's always engagement on this topic. So that's why we're discussing this today. There's just one too many people out there talking about the idea of entertaining trading Nick Chubb. And it's just not going to happen here, okay? For the people in the back, one more time, do not trade Nick Chubb. Not just because you're probably never going to get that offer, but because Nick Chubb is phenomenal. That's why. It wouldn't make any sense to go get Deshaun Watson, give up 3 first-round picks, and then in less than a calendar year, decide, let's trade our all-pro running back. That's going to help this offense that in 6 games under Watson was pretty rocky to say the least. Chubb, career high in yardage, tied his career high in touchdowns with 12. It makes no sense. Yes, if the Bears called and said, can we give you the first overall pick for Nick Chubb? Of course I'll take that deal. But no one's ever going to offer a first-round pick for a running back anymore. Shout out Trent Richardson. So you don't have to worry about this. But it is a democracy here at the channel. So if you want to disagree, go ahead and do so in the comment section. Would you trade Chubb for a late first-round pick? I'm not going to even play the what-if game of a top 16 pick for a running back. Not going to happen. The only way I ever see myself doing a polar plunge in Lake Erie is if the Bills with the 31st overall pick decide, let's trade for Nick Chubb and let's run it back next year. That's the only avenue I really see. Or like the Chiefs, for example. But even then, why wouldn't they just go ahead and pick like Bijan Robinson or another running back in round 1? If it's not the top 20 pick in the first round, if you're Andrew Berry, you don't even pick up the phone, right? You send them right to voicemail, okay? Even then, like I say this, not even a little bit of a devil's advocate, but just to go to show that you're not going to get any first-round offer from a running back. I might get old takes exposed for this. I just don't see it happen. Next story on today's show. Are changes coming for Myles Garrett with Jim Schwartz as DC? You betcha. 4 Bernie heads, baby. Believeland. Yeah. Things are going to get different. Things are going to get better in a lot of ways for Myles Garrett. But Jim Schwartz had his introductory press conference yesterday, and he had some good things to share. It was one of the best press conferences I've really seen, right? Talked a lot about just his start in the NFL with the Browns and with Bill Belichick and everything he learned, including not eating Bill Belichick's turkey sandwich. And he talked about how when he was with Detroit, the name of the game was don't let Calvin Johnson beat you. So we kind of knew that if that was the opposing plan's defensive strategy, well, then he's got to think, all right, every 17 weeks we're going to play a team and their offense's plan is don't let Myles Garrett beat us. So now it's up to Jim Schwartz to make sure their plan does not work. Now, there was some other interesting things that came out of it that I wanted to share. Hayden Grove tweeted this out, and I kind of thought the same thing too, so that's why I want to echo it. Last takeaway from Jim Schwartz's press conference. He and Myles Garrett are going to have a long talk. A long talk. And it just might be the best thing to happen to Myles Garrett. What do you think he's getting at here? I'll expand on it in just a second. But hey, if you're looking for a reason to subscribe, here's why. We do live shows every single Thursday. And if we get super chats in, we're having a good time, we're going to drink out of a dog bowl. So if you want to watch a grown man drink out of a dog bowl, like I said, hit that big red button and subscribe because let's go Browns, baby. Oof, oof. Okay. Let's look at that Jim Schwartz quote now. I will say this. If I'm doing a good job, we will hold our best players the most accountable. If you start from that position, then everything else is gravy. If you do not hold your best players most accountable, then you can have some bad vibes and different things can go on because they know, like, hey, you are coaching that guy and you said that to him because he is an undrafted free agent as opposed to a first-round pick, a high-priced free agent, or a veteran player. If I am doing a good job here, we will coach the undrafted free agent the same way we do the veteran player who has been to multiple Pro Bowls. When other players see you do that, I think it gives them confidence. Like I said, you hold your best players the most accountable. I think what the hidden message here is more or less leadership. I don't want to make something out of nothing, but when Myles Garrett got benched to start the series for that 1 week against the Saints or Commanders, whatever it was, he was sick and he missed practice and forgot to report it. He's a guy just like you and me. He's a human being. Have you ever called in fake sick to work? I think that's probably what happened more or less. Like, it doesn't really sound normal like he was sick and forgot to report it. And if that was the case, maybe Kevin Stefanski wouldn't have, benched him to start the game, if you will. I do appreciate Stefanski sticking by his guns and holding people accountable. But I think Jim Schwartz needs to come in here and solve the leadership problem on this defense. Because early on in the season, when things weren't going well against the Falcons, against the Patriots, against the Chargers, no one on this defense really stepped up to save the season. Ultimately, it cost them the season. Yeah, they had a good week against the Bengals. Yeah, they had a good week against the Texans. But that's not enough. That's not consistent. And for the amount of resources in free agency and the draft that have gone into this defense, I think Jim Schwartz does need to sit down with Myles Garrett and go, you are the Superman in the face of this defense. And Perion Winfrey getting suspended twice or, in-house suspension, healthy scratch, whatever, not going to fly. Everyone's got to get in line here, and we're going to whip everyone into shape. Before we wrap up the show, we got a couple more subjects to cover. But first, today's show is made possible by BetUS. Real talk. Let's talk gambling for a second here. I'm all over the Jags +9, and I think I need to be medicated for it. I'm sure the Chiefs are very capable of blowing out Jacksonville, but something tells me Trevor Lawrence and the Jags are going to give the Chiefs a run for their money, at least in the first half. Maybe Kansas City comes out a bit rusty, the rest versus rust debate or whatever. So just keep an eye on that. Make all your picks. Ride with me. Fade me. I don't care. Just do it at chatsports.com/bet. Promo code Browns125. Let's continue on the Jim Schwartz train here. Did he win his press conference? 4 Bernie heads, baby. Believeland. Yes, he did. I know it's just a press conference. I know that. And we got to see it materialize. We got to see it show up on field. But it's January. The Browns aren't playing in the postseason. And this feels like a win to me. All right? Especially when he's saying truth bombs like this. Cameron Justice tweeted out, Jim Schwartz, that's a burp from the dog bowl, ends his press conference with, you want a coach where fans are passionate. I feel a tremendous amount of responsibility to the fans to get this right. There's only one place that could outdo that parade in Philadelphia, and we're right here. fucking go. That is like ice in your veins, run through a wall. That's a guy I would jump on a hand grenade for. It's just a press conference, but it's the off season. And that's the kind of stuff that I'll squeeze out for weeks, baby, right? That's the kind of juice I need. Jim Schwartz ending it with, before I walk away and get to work on this defense, which needs some work, we're going to get a parade in Cleveland. Like, and a good parade this time, too. Not an 0-7 or 0-16 parade. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about. So, what's your confidence level in Jim Schwartz? Scale it 1 to 10. 10 being he's going to get this Browns defense at a Super Bowl level, and they're going to be playing in the Super Bowl next year. 1 being it's a flop, it's not going to work. I'm going to go with a solid 7.7, right? I have to wait and see a little bit more. Of course, not a little bit more. I have to wait and see something to go above the 8, but I'm there, baby. I love this hire. Let's go. Now, we haven't done this in a while, but it's the offseason, which means I kind of get a little bit more time, and I can, hone in on the comment section because that's one of my favorite places to go. I've been a bit too neglectful lately, so I want to bring back comment of the day. This one comes in from Dustin Murphy. I think a good, older, cheap veteran defensive end would be good for this defense. Like a Justin Houston type. Not him, I agree. But you know what I mean. I do. They are available late in camp and someone grabs them and they have a decent season. The Ravens always have a knack for finding older defensive ends and getting a little bit of juice out of them. And a 9-wide, pass rusher friendly technique and scheme, that Jim Schwartz runs, I do believe the Browns they have to be strategic. They have to be technical in what moves they make in free agency. And I wouldn't mind them kind of going light at the opposite defensive end position to go get a Daron Payne. And maybe they go with a older defensive end on a 1-year, $6 million contract who casually pops off for 7.5 sacks. So, Dustin, thank you very much for the comment. That's going to do it for this show. We'll see you guys later here on the Cleveland Browns Report.